No, Fizzgig. You stay here. Dole.
Hi everyone, I'm Luke Hector and you're watching the Broken Meeple. This is a YouTube channel about board games where I give reviews, top 10s and my honest opinions, regardless of the consequences. We'll get on with the show in just a minute, but first a quick word from my sponsor. As a fellow gamer, you'll understand this is unacceptable. The solution? Head down to my new sponsor, KIENDA.co.uk. KIENDA stocks many of the hot new releases as well as some old hidden gems. Free delivery on orders over £30, further discounts on bulk purchases, and even 5% of your spending refunded back to you as points to be used for further discounts down the line. If you use the referral link in the description below and sign up for a new account, you'll get 5% discount on your first order over £60. So let's make gaps in your collection a thing of the past. Get down to KIENDA and start saving today. Thank you for listening and enjoy the rest of the video.
Get on with it.
Finally, a top 10 list in the room as normal. Yes, don't worry, there'll be more of these going forwards. It's just you got to accept that Essen is basically review season, so the show can't fit a lot of top 10 lists when I'm trying to do Essen reviews. But certainly, I can't end 2023 without the top 10 of the year, which loads of people have already done, but, you know, I like to leave it as late as possible. Get as many games played as I can in the time so that I can give this a fair going. Although, that won't stop me from doing a retrospective top 10 of 23 at some point middle of next year, where I'll look back on some of the games that maybe I've caught up with or played more, see how the games have solidified on my list, because some of these games I've played recently and some of these I've been playing since the start of the year. So there's definitely a bit of a mix. 2023 overall, not bad actually. I mean, it's not an amazing year, but I still think it was generally pretty good. You know, compared to the last two. The last 2 years I thought were like, bleh, you know, they were kind of fairly down. Yeah, there was a few good games there. I talked about 10 each year, but I was struggling for a bit. But this one, nah, I could have come up with a top 20 if I tried. I think anything beyond that would have been probably going into like mediocre territory, and to be honest, even the bottom half of my top 20 would have probably just been rated 7s, which, come on, let's face it. Do you want me to talk about the best games of the year or the slightly adequate games of the year? Come on, we're talking about the 10 best here. And you know me, I wouldn't say I'm a harsh critic, but, you know, I like to talk honestly, and, you know, games cannot just impress me by functioning. They've got to give me something more in order to really sell it out as like, oh yeah, this is a game I want to talk about. And I've got 10 here for you, my 10 absolute favorite games from this year, all rated, I think, like 8, 9, and 10s. You know, these are like really solid games that I can recommend. So without further ado, let's crack on. My number 10 is a solo game. Well, it can technically be played with 2 players, but let's face it, we always play these solo. And this is the latest in a long series of games by Shady Torbay. Or Shadi Torbay, I can't remember the pronunciation. But this is basically a group of games in the Omniverse. And there's several that have been on my shelf for a while. This is now the 4th game that is now on my shelf as being a really solid entry, which is Cyberion. Cyberion is essentially a game where you are using these different robots, 5 different types, in order to repair these machines. And these machines all have different criteria, like some need 2 of the yellow robot, 3 of the blue, a 1, 2, 3, 4 robot, that kind of thing. You know, simple requirements. But the idea is that these robots, you draw so many in a round, and you obviously need to use what you have available to repair the machines, and hopefully do at least 1 per round. But each robot has its own ability that when you discard the robot, you get to trigger some cool manipulation with the cards. But you don't have the abilities to start off with. First off, you have to repair some machines, put those on an experience pile, and then the experience pile is used to upgrade your abilities in any way you desire. Do you want to munchkin 1 ability and completely ignore 2 others? Fine. Do you want to diversify a bit? Again, up to you. With a few extra little modules, which to be fair, I have not tried all the little modules in here. I think I've tried 1 and it was, you know, it was decent, it was fine. But just the basic game alone, I really enjoyed with this one. It was a very simple rule set. It's got some luck element. I mean, you're drawing cards and you're trying to see if you can get the right ones, but I felt there was a decent amount of mitigation that you could do with those abilities. You could trigger some really cool, powerful turns. You couldn't obviously just repair as many machines as you could all the time. You had to remember that you need to try and do 1 every round, so sometimes you might, you know, yes, I could repair it, but you know what? I'll leave it for next one because I don't think I'm going to be able to repair any others and stuff like that. It's just quite a cool little system, and alongside I think I've got, was it Arion, Onirim and Sylveon, and I think Arion's been the favourite so far, the little dice manipulation one. This one's up there. It's a very solid one. I think I gave it an 8, I'd give it an 8 out of 10. I certainly look forward to trying the rest of the expansions in here, but yeah, this is now the Impatience publisher. I think it's like self-publishing it now under this line as opposed to Z-Man Games. But if you like this series, or if you think, oh, maybe I haven't liked a couple recently, because I must admit, the last one or two, I think, was it Nautilion, and then some weird one from last year, I can't remember its title, it was so forgettable, but yeah, didn't really care for those two. But this one, really solid. Check it out if you like a good solo game. My number 9 is a game that I would consider to be a staple gateway game from recent years, because we've had Ticket to Ride and Carcassonne and Forbidden Island and all those usual ones that we talk about, which are all great games. But at some point I need to do an updated top 10 gateway games list for like the last 5 years to really get some more new titles in. This is one that I'm certainly going to consider for that list, and that is Leaf from Weird City Games and Tim Eisner, who you might recognize did Canopy, a game that I've always talked about a lot. This is a really beautiful, simple gateway game where the actions that you can do are straightforward. Level up a tree, go up the track, get some animal cards for set collection, draw more leaf cards to play. The actions themselves are really straightforward and easy to understand, especially with a good little reference aid in front of you. But it's a really clever system with these leaves, and I particularly love the tuck box insert that they give you as well. But the idea is that you place these different colour leaves on the table, and you have to place them in such a way that the tips touch as many other tips of leaves as possible, and for every tip you touch, including the stem, you get an action. But the actions you can do depend on the colour of the leaf that you're touching. And so you've got this really cool kind of spatial awareness puzzle of trying to find the most lucrative spots for the leaves to go, but also get the actions that you're trying to trigger. Like, I need more animal cards before the next hibernation. Well, I need to find orange leaves then. Well, there's an orange leaf. I'll get one less action if I go here, but I need the animal, so I'll go over there. And there's just a few little easy scoring mechanisms. But it takes little to no time to teach this thing. It looks beautiful on the table, always turns heads, because they come around and go, ooh, that looks very nice.
I think she's pretty.
Quiet, bud.
It's built to a budget. These aren't like the most stellar quality components, but it's a cheap game to acquire and just looks really pretty and does the job of a 45-minute tops gateway level game that I can teach to most new players. Would I want to put my mum and dad in front of it? Probably not, but somebody who's relatively new to games, I would definitely really consider this one. I was very surprised at how well it catered for that particular market, and it's going to sit in my collection and be used for just that. My number 8 is a really clever card game, which I gotta give props to the designer. I sat down at Essen with this designer who not only told me about the game, but also made it so I could get into a demo by switching out the English and German decks from the two tables that he was on, just so that I could play the game. And all this time, he didn't even tell me he was the designer. He told me after the fact. So he was so humble in that he didn't want to express that thing. But, credit where it's due. But the card game in question is Evenfall from DLP Games, and this one, besides having really gorgeous artwork, I mean, Martin Motet, it's the same artist. I think he's also appeared on Revive. Now, I only gave that an average review, and honestly, the artwork in Revive is barely noticeable. Here, it's all on show with this glorious kind of yellowy autumn look. It's really solid. But this is essentially an engine builder card game with a tiny little bit of interaction with other players, but it's, I suppose, a little bit more solitaire than most. But the idea with this is that the cards have multiple uses. Like, a card can be used as a special ability for the game, but it can also be end-game scoring. Another card, has different worker spots for you to put your witches and elders on. And it's just this clever little system where it kind of reminds me of a game I used to play called, Elysium, where you have this display in front of you with the cards, and if they're at the top of the display, then they can get you resources, but if you can move them from here to the bottom, they then can score you victory points or be additional worker spots for a set of workers called the Elders, which can only be placed on those bottom cards. But as you can see, it's a very pretty game from the artwork. Martin's artwork is all over these cards as well. They look really cool. The graphic design is easy to follow. It was fairly simple rules, although the rulebook did have some weird ambiguity in it it where sometimes they wrote it in the wrong language. It was kind of interesting. But this is just a clever card game. You know, you draw a bunch of cards. It's one of those games where everybody takes actions until they pass, only 3 rounds, and the idea is that you're trying to be hyper efficient. So, you know, I can play this card for resources. Well, hopefully that will get me another resource, which allows me to play this card. If I discard these 2 cards for a resource at this spot, if I put my witch there, I can get more resources, so I can play this one. And you're just trying to do as much as you can before the time runs, you know, not the time, sorry, before the rounds end. And it's just, you know, it feels like most stuff we've seen before, but I found it to be really smooth and elegant for how it played, and it allowed for a lot of differing paths to victory. You know, these specialists in particular, where they give you either a special ability or some endgame ongoing ability, or, sorry, an endgame scoring or another ongoing ability, you know, the ways that you can combo these things do lead to a lot of interesting ways to play, you know, focusing a lot on the combat, focusing a lot on the, you know, acquisition of cards or the rituals. Do I care about resources? Do I care about the victory points for putting, you know, little, what's it, elder orbs on them? And I know I say the word combat, it's not like, oh, I'm in your face fighting. It's simply just the scythe mechanism of, you know, take a little dial, choose how much power you want to generate, and whoever has the most gets a prize, but everybody gets other prizes. So it's not like, oh, in your face direct combat. So don't be put off by that. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one. It was a good solid hit, a decent solo mode as well. Quite challenging solo mode, but you know, a good one in there. And I look forward to trying this a bit more with some of the asymmetrical powers thrown in, because most of the time, I tried it once with the asymmetricals and they were fine, but I almost kind of feel like I like everybody to be on the same foot with the basic powers. But, you know, I can take it or leave it. So, you know, thanks to the designer who even signed my box as well for giving me a good introduction to this game. But that aside, I just found this to be really solid and definitely one to consider if you're an engine building card game fan. My number 7 is the most recent review I have done, and if that doesn't give it away, then I don't know what will. Yes, of course, I'm talking about Garphill Games' new release, Scholars of the South Tigris. This has had the beans to be played, and I don't consider it to be quite as amazing as, say, Wayfarers and Architects Viscounts I've done, but it's definitely up there with one of the better releases so far. And, you know, I've enjoyed my plays of this recently, where I've taught it to new players or played it solo, whether physically or on Tabletop Simulator, and it's a good solid hit in the Tigris lineup, which so far is 2 for 2. You know, Paladins was a bit of a for me last time, and Explorers and Shipwrights from the first season, not as great either. So this one now, we have Wayfarers and now Scholars. So hopefully Inventions can make it free for free. I would love that. But Scholars is this really cool game where you're trying to translate scripts from one language down to Arabic, but to do so you need to use these different scribe and translators who speak the different languages, and you need to pay them in gold in order for them to do so. But the mechanics work with a sort of dice mechanic with color mixing. So you have dice that you draw out of a bag by yourself, but the idea is that if I get to, like, your action board out, your action board has action slots where you place these cards down along with dice and color meeples. And not only does the value of the action matter, but also the color of the action. Because it's one thing to say, oh, well, I've got an action value of 7. Great. But let's say I'm trying to level up on a research track. I need it to be blue. I need it to be yellow. I need it to be orange, you know. And sometimes you have the dice in order to do that, but sometimes you've just got these basic color white dice, and so you need to use these color meeples in order to change the color of the actions. Takes a little bit of a learning curve to get used to the idea of color mixing, because let's face it, with Eurogamers we tend to base everything on like values or single things, whereas here we're now mixing colors, like I need yellow and red to make orange and that kind of thing. Hopefully I got that right. So it's been a while. I'm not an artist, put it that way. And you know, the mechanics themselves are pretty cool and interesting. Now, there's a little bit of, like, you know, a lot of iconography to go through, and certainly there's a few micro rules that you need to absorb, but I've still found this to be good fun with, you know, enough meaty forward planning mechanics and a light sense of interaction, because everybody is like using shared resources, so the scripts and the translators can be used by anybody. Just because I delivered the script doesn't mean it's my script. Just because I hired the translator doesn't mean it's my translator. Somebody might come along, use the translator, make them retire, and it's like, well, hang on, I was about to do that. And you've got to be aware of what the other players are doing. There's even a slight kind of not like a race, but like an impending doom aspect for the end of the game, because 4 scoring cards have to come out of this little card deck, and obviously when the second one comes out, it's like, oh, I think I'm okay, and then the third one comes out, it's like, oh, the game's going to end pretty soon, how much can I get done before the fourth one comes out? And I love games that use impending doom mechanics, you know, that's the phrase I'm going to use, impending doom, at the end of the game where you don't know when it's going to be triggered. It's a solid system and it works fine in here. So yeah, I've enjoyed my plays as Scholars, and it might even go up in the future. We shall see. I've only really been playing this through December, because I only got it at the start of December. So, you know, I need time for this to, say, solidify my thoughts. Hence why it's not, maybe not higher on my list for this year, and there have been better games. But yeah, we're going to be interested to see whether this can rise up in the charts for my Garfield likes, or, you know, by the time we get to the retrospective list, whether this has still stood the test of time and still remains one that I want to play. So, good so far. So Garfield games, inventors of the South Tigris, make sure it's good. I want free for free.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
My number 6 is a train game.
What?
Yeah, I know, right? But come on, look. Just because it has trains in it doesn't mean I dislike a game, okay? Granted, a lot of heavier train games I hate and despise. Imperial Steam. But the idea with trains is that I just find trains boring. As a theme, as a concept, as a mode of transportation, I hate trains. But that doesn't mean that I don't like some games that have trains as part of the theme or setting. And honestly, this game could have had any of those settings. But this is from Dranda Games, and I love it because it packs a lot of game into a small box. And those sort of games really do appeal to me. You know, condensing a small footprint, like Isle of Trains here, with a lot of game. And Isle of Trains uses a mechanic which I particularly love with cards, which is used in games like San Juan, where the deck of cards is everything. So here, you're building a literal engine of trains, you know, front locomotive as well as different trains that can hold resources and passengers. But the card for the engine is a card. In order to build the cards, you have to discard cards from your hands, so they are the currency as well. And if you want to put resources on the trains, you have to look at whether the side of the card has the right resource symbol, like in this case coal, so I can put the coal on this, you know, this tanker here, or boxcar, or whatever, and stick it there. So it's multi-use cards, where the deck of cards is everything you need. That sort of mechanic I love. San Juan is one of my favorite little sort of, you know, cool, simple games that uses a similar mechanic, and when other games do this, I enjoy it as well, and this is no different. But for the money you pay for this game, even if you ignore the add-ons like the special metal coins and the playmat and stuff, which is all well and good, just the basic game here is pretty solid. I mean, you've got all these different cardboard tokens, you've got a lot of cards with, you know, nice, colourful artwork, you've got these, you know, screen-printed meeples, you know, with those. I think mine is it might be a deluxe version, I'm not sure, but you know, even the retail version of this is still pretty damn good quality. And it's just a fun, quick game. You are done with this in about 45 minutes. It doesn't take a long time to set up, and you don't have a ton of different paths to victory, but you can decide whether you're going to go heavy like contracts or heavy passengers or mix of both or whatever. And you've obviously got to be mindful of what other players do, because, you know, there's a bit of interaction where, you know, when you know, I build myself, for example, let's find something, yeah, come on, need to find something. Here we go. Level 1 coach. Okay, so I can put a passenger in here, but other players can put passengers in my truck, which, you know, why would you do that? Well, yes, I get your passenger, but you get bonus cards and victory points maybe for putting your stuff in my train. So you've got to balance this aspect of, well, I do need more cards and stuff. So you know what? Yes, you can have this box, but you don't want to give the opponent everything, because they'll just run away with the game. So it's this cool sort of almost like chicken-like, you know, tug of war with everybody sort of trying to give even stuff to players. And it's just a really cool method of interaction, which again, we don't see in a lot of Euro games these days. Interaction seems to be put by the wayside, and it doesn't have to mean I punch you in the face.
Oh God, you're killing me!
It can be cool interaction like this. This one really surprised me as to how much I enjoyed it. I showed it to a couple of friends of mine who I play heavy games with. They fell in love with it so much they bought it the second they were able to get a copy. So, you know, where's my royalties? But yeah, really enjoyed this one. It's solid, and, you know, yes, it's got trains in it. Whoopie-doo, I don't care, because the theme is whatever. But for mechanics-wise, this packs a lot in a tiny little box and deserves the recognition. My number 5 is on the shelf behind me somewhere, but what is it? Well, this one is one that has a very unique theme to it. The idea of taking photographs and like, okay, taking photographs, but this one is where you are photographers taking pictures of animals and trees and flowers and stuff. But rather than just simply playing cards or that sort of mechanic, you actually have a dexterity spatial awareness element where you have to kind of guess where your guy is going, where they're going to be, and use different templates for the camera lens to try and take photos of the specific stuff. I'm of course talking about the very picturesque and very innovative Redwood from Sit Down Games. Now, it already boasts one of the best board game covers I have seen in a long time. This camera lens with all this stuff spewing out of it, I think is gorgeous with the white background. But the game itself looks gorgeous as well. Everything from the rulebook to, you know, the board to the different templates. I mean, this one just turns heads every time it's on the table. And Ido Valls, who I think is it, yep, Ido Valls, who's pretty much been a machine with artwork this year, deserves credit for making this look really cool. But I love this idea with using the template. So you basically have a template to move your person around, which is done with, you know, these kind of little things here. So you clip them onto the, whoop, oh, yeah, here's one I made earlier. So, you know, you put them on there and then you move it on the map, move your guy there, and then you've got the camera lens. So, you know, I've got like a very long thin lens here, but there's wide angle lens and stuff. And it's just a simple game. I mean, it's not complicated, but it's quite hard to sort of gauge where your person's going to be and what they're going to do, and that's just a really cool, like, fun part. But it's lightweight, it's funny, the idea that you can't, like, take a picture of some of the photographers there because they're effectively photo bombing what you're trying to do.
Get out of the way.
Oh, I'm sorry, am I annoying
Yes, you are.
Well, yes,
you
what
can't
you do to
possibly
me?
need to be that close.
That always gets quite a lot of laughs whenever you're doing it in games, but, you know, this one just, it gives a lot of different ways to like score points. I mean, am I going to go for sets of animals? Am I going to go for sets of flowers? Am I going to try and get the sunlight? Am I going to try and get the trees? Am I going to try and go for just the objectives that reveal each round that score you more points? It's simple, but it's light, fluffy fun. I mean, check out my review for more details. The only downside I have with this is that the length, saying 45 minutes, is for the lower end of the player counts. If you play this with 3 or 4, you're likely to be taking longer than an hour with this. It certainly can maybe drag on a little bit, but you're in a nice calm mood. It's like a little Zen game almost, and it's different and innovative. Yes, we've seen this theme done a million times, but the way it's implemented and this whole sort of dexterity mechanic is unique and innovative, and this is what I keep ramming home about in my reviews. I like games that try something different. You might fail, but you tried something different, and I will at least respect you for that. This one tried a decent idea, tried a new idea, and it did a decent job of it. So Redwood's definitely going to stick around, and I bring it out every now and again for that little lighter touch. Alright, we're getting into the creme de la creme of games now, and this is where they are like legendary status. Like, oh yeah, these are ones I'm going to use as benchmarks for these genres, and they've just really stood out from the crowd. And this one, I pretty much wrote off when I first heard about it, because I thought, oh, it's not the most interesting title, and it's, you know, no, I don't know. I'll gloss past it later, and I'll come back to it eventually, because I really didn't even think about this game when I was looking at my Essen stuff. But this one, then I came across it at Essen. I talked to the designer and had a look at it. It's like, okay, that does sound rather interesting. You know what? I look forward to trying this. Tried it, fell in love with it. This game is just really good, really solid, and yet has simple rules, simultaneous turns, and a decent amount of fun and banter within. And that is Art Society from Mighty Boards. This one, you know, is not anything we've necessarily not seen before. This idea of bidding for tiles, putting them on your board, and it's not polyomino. I mean, they're different size squares and rectangles, so yes, there is a spatial element to putting these art pieces in your gallery, but it's not like Tetris weird L shapes and nonsense like that. But the cool thing with this is that there's very little downtime here. Everything is simultaneous apart from choosing the tiles at the start of the round. That's an active player thing, but then at that point, everybody's involved, everybody's bidding, everybody's thinking about what the other players are doing, everybody's putting stuff on their board. And the cool thing with this is that, you know, you've got that bidding mechanic, which is similar to something like out of Castles of Mad King Ludwig, where, you know, one person puts out these tiles hoping that they can get what they need, but then they've obviously got to think, well, what do other players want? You've got this fantastic insert here that keeps everything nice and organized. Like, the setup is literally done in seconds, pretty much, because everything's already in place for you. But you've got cool little art pieces. But where this game excels is the choosing of the art tiles that you want, because it's not just the space that you've got to be interested in. There's 4 different things you got to think about. Firstly, will it fit on my board? There's bit number 1. What frame is it? Because if you put the frames next to each other that are the same, you get bonus pieces to fill up spaces on your board and give you points. So that's 2 things. Third thing, is it the same type as something I'm going to put it next to? Because that creates a faux pas and nullifies it for scoring.
Oh, Jesus! Oh, God! Mary, Mother of Jesus, Jesus of Nazareth!
That's 3 things you got to consider. But then it has, again, a mechanic I really love, which is that when you're drafting stuff, the one that's left over has a profound effect on the game. Pioneer Days and several other games have done this, and I always love it. The idea being that, let's say I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here. You know, I've got 5 pieces that I'm picking from. There's 4 of them, so, sorry, 4 players. 4 of them get picked. The one that's left over increases the prestige value of that type of painting, making it potentially score more at the end of the game. So when you're choosing a piece and you've got a choice of 2 or 3, you're thinking, well, I could take that because it's really beneficial to me, but then I'm making red more powerful in points than the yellows, which I've got more of. And it's like, well, do I want to make red more powerful? Because yellow's currently ahead of them. I kind of want yellow to stay up ahead in prestige. And so 4 different things that you've got to consider with every choice. And yet these aren't the most difficult, like, oh my god, brain burny choices ever. But it's just really good that it's got simple rules, but yet good depth. You know, you can teach this in no time at all. People get it. It's got simple rules. I mean, the only downsides really is that 2 of the ways the game could end just don't happen. So there's really only one way the game ends. And there's a couple of little bits of scoring that I haven't seen have too much impact on the game, although I've been proved wrong on that once in the past. It can lead to some tight scores. It's just a really cool simultaneous sort of action game where you don't feel like you're bored. It doesn't outstay its welcome. It does what it sets out to do and has a cover that literally nobody can stop going, ooh, let me feel this, because it's got like recessed bits in it for all the art paintings. It's a cool cover, but you didn't need it, but everybody just can't help but go like this. It's like catnip for people. But yeah, this one really surprised me enough to give it a 10 out of 10. I thought it was just like, yep, this is definitely a, would I call it gateway level? No, but I would certainly call it a light game and certainly maybe the next step game. But if you pass this one thinking, oh yeah, it's not, nothing particularly special, trust me, check out my review and then give this one a shot. My number 3 is a game which, well, let's face it, it's pretty much on everybody's top 10 of the year. Apart from a few people who did bounce off it, it's not a game that's for everybody. But yeah, we've seen this game high up on a lot of lists, and deservedly so, because I think I gave it a 9 when I first reviewed it. It's now a 10 for me. It's actually gone up in my rating since. I consider this to be a fantastic tableau builder card game, and yeah, not everybody loves it, and certainly I don't want to play this with too many players. I think 3 is a good cap for number of players this needs, but I'll happily play it solo. I'll play it with 4 players if people know what they're doing. But man, when it comes to the options, choices, and passivity that you can take, the cleverness of Earth cannot be understated. This thing is fantastic, and I've even pimped it up with a very good insert from Folded Space, so thank you Folded Space for this insert. It was a little present from them, and yeah, if you want to organize this nicely, get the Folded Space insert. You will not regret it. But this is just such a clever game. All these cards, which I now need to actually sleeve. It's about time I actually sleeved them. But, all the different cards, all unique, all different effects. And it's, you build up a 4x4 grid of cards and it's simultaneous action. So I choose to do the red action to get soil. Well, everybody does the red action. I get a more powerful version than the rest of you. And then everybody triggers all the red abilities on all these cards that they've got. And it's just a smorgasbord of options and variety. Your starting setup can be 2 cards, an island and a climate, which could fundamentally change your early game and give you some progress to go for. But then you've got all the different objectives, you've got the milestones that you're racing for, and you've just got the cool abilities that are on these cards. I mean, they're nothing groundbreaking. Compost a few cards, get some cubes, pay this to get that. Get trees on every tree in this row, or grow a cube on every mushroom in this row. But it's got similarities to stuff like Ares Expedition and Wingspan, and I would probably say that this kills Ares Expedition stone dead.
I beg to differ, sir.
But you can certainly teach this game to anybody who's played Wingspan with the scoring mechanisms in it and go, oh yeah, that's similar. So it definitely borrows from it. But oh man, I enjoyed this. I played it the other night, actually, in fact. I taught it twice. I taught it to one person, we got through one turn, and then another person turned up who also had the game and wanted to learn it, so I reset the game, taught it to them again, and then we played a free player. That was how much I wanted people to play this. I was that excited that I turned my throat into a cheese grater to effectively teach them this sort of thing. But it's a really good, solid, fun game. In fact, the only downside I really have of it is that I find the events to be situational, and the whole fact that they give points, positive or negative, is really inconsequential for the most part. Although, saying that, we did finish the last Earth game 202 to 201 to 195, so maybe an event or two did make a difference on that one. But oh, it's a point salad through and through. There's just so much you can do, and you know, with all the different starting setups and that you can have, I can play this for years and never get bored with the variety it has. Even the solo mode, nice and quick, good challenge, you know, a couple of little ambiguities of the rulebook, but you know, they're sorted out soon. This one's just great, you know. Really, I just don't want to play this with 5 players ever. I mean, that's garbage as a player count. And 4 is, has everybody played this before, and is there an AP player? I'm a little bit unworried, but it's getting high praise. People are putting this in their top 5, some of the number 1s of the year, and yeah, I can't blame them. It's a really solid game. It's in my top 3. I even considered this for number 2. I mean, my 2 and 3 are so neck and neck that they could have been like that, but oh yeah. So good. I get that if you didn't like it, you didn't like it. That's fine. I can see why certain people wouldn't like it. But if you like tableau builder card games, you pretty much are governed to play this. You gotta give it a try. Check out my review for more details.
Or else, I'll turn you into a f***ing tree.
My number 2, as I said, could have literally been swapped with my number 3. I mean, I jostled for this and I had to think, you know, how many floors does each one have? Which one am I going to play more often? Which one am I, like, more impressed by that it did what it did? Also, again, like I say, you can swap them around if you like. But this one is what I've reviewed it recently, and it's based on the topic that I've been touting lately, which is that I have to admit that when it comes to themes in games, one of my favorite themes that you can bring over is a video game port. Because they have like a rich lore, they have like cool thematic integration and that, and they're prime for putting into a board game. Now, some have done really well at this, some not so much, and we can discuss that until the cows come home when it comes to, you know, which ones did well and what didn't. But there's no denying that Deep Rock Galactic did it well. This one just really works, and you know, you might argue, oh Luke, there's a bit of bias, you've played the video game. Yes, I'll admit, I've played 550 plus hours or something of time into the video game. I still play it almost every day, well not every day, but you know, like very frequently. I've got 30 minutes, it's late at night, you know what, I felt like a couple of games of Deep Rock Galactic, and I'll just bring it on, play with some randoms, rock and stone, and just have great fun. It's a great 4-player co-op game where you take a dwarf, you go into asteroids, you fight off bugs while you're trying to mine minerals and various other different objectives. But it's just done so well. The theme is pitch perfect to what the video game is. It just does it so well. Yes, the rulebook could have been a little better, and there's certainly a bit of an FAQ that you have to deal with, but they are fixing that with the reprint and some expansions and that, so I look forward to that. But just everything else in this game works so well. I'm not going to get everything out because it's going to take forever, but you know, you can check out the review and where I get them out and show off the miniatures and stuff. But just everything here, it's produced well, and it deserves to be produced well, because I'm not going to lie, it was very, very expensive, this Kickstarter, particularly if you got the miniatures. But you know, everything that you see here, artwork, the mechanics, how they work, how they look, feel like the video game. And yet, I taught this to people who have never heard of the video game, and they still enjoy it because it's a simple rule set with a 4-player skirmish co-op scenario base. No campaign nonsense. I don't have to play this multiple scenarios in a row and have a story or whatever. No, it's just like the video game. I just want to fire it up and have a fun setting where I go into an asteroid, I've got this objective, nice and simple, right, here's my flamethrower, go kill bugs. It's just simplicity. I admire its purity, shall we say. And it's just a really cool system. It works well, doesn't take long to teach. I can teach half of it as the game goes on, and I can use video game references if people have played it. I can happily teach it if they haven't. It's just the perfect example of having passion in the project, because there are some video game ports which just don't feel anything like the video game. I mean, I have done reviews for, say, Skyrim in the past. You know, Skyrim, the board game, the recent one, I think Modifius did it. I gave that like barely a 5 out of 10, and that one didn't do a very good job of porting it over, in my opinion. I felt like the theme was lost, it looked bland, horrible, it had fiddly mechanics and stuff. This one, though, you know, the fact that they are very closely connected location-wise, you know, Mood Publishing and Ghost Ship Games, they really took the effort to make this work. They took the effort to take the theme and represent it well. And when you do that, you create a really good thematic, immersive game. Now, obviously, the mechanics have to back it up. And here, I think, other than the slight blemishes with the rulebook and the FAQ, which are, you know, they're doable. You know, it doesn't make the game unplayable. We're not talking Conan and Batman Gotham City Chronicles here. You know, it's just the fact that there's maybe a few ambiguities that you go, oh, that's kind of how it works. All right, fine. But they will be fixed. But this is still just so much fun. I love just breaking it out for a quick solo game. I like taking to a game night and just saying, anybody fancy a cool 4-player co-op? Easy to learn, easy to teach? Well, sit on down and choose a dwarf. It's just so much fun. I mean, I just want to break it out right now or just go on the video game. But unfortunately, I got other things to do, like the rest of this top 10. So what's my number 1? But when it comes to themes, oh my word, oh, this game took a theme that I never thought I would get into. I thought, oh god, this is going to be one that's going to be very hit or very miss. You know, this could completely collapse. You know, you're taking a very unique theme here, a tricky theme to work with and get into, and turning it into this massive Euro game. And it's like, can you make it work? Mainly, I kind of got into like wanting to look at it because one of the co-designers in it also did some work on Pursuit of Happiness, another game I love, but I thought, give it a shot. In terms of reviews, I have not spent as much time with the review as I have this one. This took so much time to learn it, to get it played, and play it God knows how many times, both solo and multiplayer, before I was ready to review it. And then the review was one of my longest reviews. I mean, by all means, go check it out, but oh man. The cleverness and the sheer design skill that went into this game to make it work cannot be understated for, of course, hegemony. Hegemony, lead your class to victory. Oh yes. For those of you out there who claim that I don't like heavy Euros, so you rate those all lower than all the rest, yeah, shove it.
Stick that in your pipe and smoke it.
Massive heavy Euro, 3 to 4 hours typical game time, asymmetric classes, which means that you have a unique rule set to yourself, even though there's a decent amount of overlap with players. Yeah, I'm sorry, your argument fails, mate. I love this game. I've never had a bad game of it. Some have been longer and shorter than others, but oh man, it just works so well. And even the solo mode is pretty decent. I have good fun with that from the expansion, and certainly I might have to think about getting an insert for this game because it is a little bit crowded in here, but wow. I mean, just the sheer like cleverness of this. You know, in fact, it's hard to really get a lot of the pieces out because they are all like in their own little Tupperwares, and I've had to organize things by player count, you know, to have, you know, the workers and that, but, you know, you'll have to look at the pictures, I think, for the most part. But this game has, like, it deals with class politics. So each of you takes a faction like capitalist, working class, the state, and that. And everybody has their own way of scoring victory points, but all the mechanisms overlap, and it has such a high degree of interaction. Because, you know, the capitalist wants to build companies and make money and make resources. Great. Well, they obviously need workers. Well, the workers come from 2 of the other classes, so they've got to provide the workers. And yeah, cool, come work for my companies. I don't want to pay you a high wage, though, because that'll eat into my profits. Well, the working class is like, well, hang on a minute, I want high wages. So do you.
Help! Help! I'm being repressed, bloody peasant!
And then they try to influence these like politic bills, you know, these different kind of laws for the game in order to say, no, I want high wages. And other classes like, well, I don't want high wages, screw you. We vote on it. There's a politics phase. It's just, there's so much that I can tell you about this game just from a thematic standpoint, without even going into the mechanisms, that makes this work so well. And it's not even a theme I'm that into. I'm not into social politics and class politics and stuff like that, but it makes sense, and I'm still immersed in what I'm doing. There are stories I can tell from different games we've had experience-wise. There are so many cool, like, scenarios that we've played with different player counts and different people trying different classes. We went to what was it called? Baycon, I think, last year when this first started fulfilling, shortly after I did the review. I played this 4 times at the same 3-day convention. That's how popular this was. And that was just my copy. There were other people doing the same thing. This thing has had its fair share of fans, and it's a niche game for sure. There's only so many people that are going to be able to play this, let alone even want to try it. But it just, if you love the game, you really love it, and it's definitely one of those titles. And yeah, I love bringing this out. Every convention, I'm looking around to see, is anybody playing Hegemony? Anybody playing Hegemony? And as soon as somebody is, I'm like, oh, can I get in on that game? Preferably with people who know what they're doing, because teaching this is a bit of a slog. There is, no game is perfect, even for something that I think I rated this a 9, but yeah, for me, critic rating probably a 9, but for me, personally, 10 out of 10. I love this. It's just so much fun. All the different classes feel different to play. I enjoy playing all 4 of the classes. No class feels lesser to me, although I particularly like playing the State, because the State has a system where they need to know how the game works, so they're trying to balance what the other 3 factions are doing. Now, of course, they have their own agenda, and they want to get points in their own way, but they want to drip feed a little bit of stuff to each of the classes in sequence to sort of go, I'm giving you a little bit of help here, a little bit of help here, you're getting a little bit too powerful, so you know what, let's vote against you on this and bring up the working class a little bit. And I love games where I get to do this kind of little clever manipulation of all the other players for my own benefit.
It varies from moment to moment.
I just really love that in a game, and the State gets to do it in spades. You give the State to a new player and it kind of does unbalance the game a little bit, but you give the State to someone who knows what they're doing, which is what I tend to be when I'm in the State seat. I'm not saying like, oh, I'm brilliant at the game, but what I'm saying is that if I'm teaching it to people who haven't played this many times, I will typically play the State because I know what I'm doing with the other players. You need to know what's going on. But the working class going heavy into the politics stuff, the capitalists going all the companies and the resources and exporting, and then the middle class trying to do this kind of balance of both while being self-sufficient, they all just feel really cool. I love this game. I want to play it as often as I can, and it's tricky because it's very long and very involved. But because there's a lot of fans that I come across at conventions for this, I know I can get it played when I go to these conventions. Just so much fun, so much fun. I'm looking forward to their, New World Order, this area control game that they've got in the works. Will it be as good as this? I don't know. It looks like a simpler affair, but it's going to deal with international politics. I'm definitely keen to look at it, even in its preview stage, and I don't often want to look at previews anymore, if at all, but I'm making an exception for that because of how much I love this game. So yeah, it's not for everybody. You need to be a heavy gamer. You need to know there's a lot of rules going in, but it's got great reference aids to help you. Perfect reference aids for each player to help you get to grips with your side of the game. But yeah, I love it. I didn't think I would love it this much, but I'm glad I put the effort and investment into this to try and really get to grips with the strategies and how all the stuff interacted. And this is like a magnum opus game for this. They're called Hegemonic Productions or whatever it is. The publisher, was it Hegemonic Project? Yeah, so this is going to be kind of like their opus, their focus. But oh man, you're not going to see another game like this. It's going to be its own unique thing. And again, unique, innovative, different. That works for games, and it works for this one. So my number 1 for the year, easily, Hegemony. Well, there you go. That is my top 10 of the year. 10 fantastic games that I love to talk about. But there's a lot of games that came out this year, and I couldn't obviously play them all. So, sorry. I'm just my own person. Even the Dice Tower can't play all the games of the year. And they've got, 8 people or something on their team that they can do it with? What am I supposed to do by myself? But I do my best to get a lot of them played. And there were some honourable mentions I do want to mention here. So I'm just going to go through my list and just mention, let's see, all the other high-rated games that didn't quite make it. Series, yep, the Artipia Games game, very simple worker placement game with a lot of different kind of variety in the buildings that you can make. It's straightforward, go mining and space asteroids and collect points and build infrastructures. It's a nice simple game, not quite top 10 material, but I still really enjoy it. Kutna Horror, where is that? That's somewhere down there, I believe. Where is it? It's somewhere around. Oh, I think it's right behind me. But Kukna Horror, this really cool game where you've got a dynamic price market to influence what the resources cost in like building up buildings and mining down below. It had some issues with it, and so that would take it out of, say, probably would put me in my 15 to 20 section. But I still give it credit for trying something new and different. It just didn't quite execute it fully, but still I enjoyed it. So check out my review on that for more details. Path of Civilization, which I think is also, yep, just there. Very cool kind of like card-based civ game, which I do enjoy, where you're forced to progress every round and you start off with very little to do, but then it quickly spirals out of control with being able to do all sorts of different paths to victory. It's got a cool solo mode in it as well. It was just a clever game, just a bit of a big box for its liking, that's for sure. What else we got? Sweet Mess. Sweet Mess, yep, down here underneath Redwood from Pika Games. This was a resurrected Kickstarter, effectively, and it's basically Splendor with extra meat. Or extra pastries, I guess, in this case. But, you know, it involves similar Splendor mechanics of collect the different chips and use them to cash in for cards. But using this really nice looking bakery theme, it looks gorgeous on the table, and it just adds a couple of other rules that make it really cool. I've done a review on this, and it's not one of my most popular reviews in the sense that not many people have viewed it because they have no idea what this game is. But honestly, give it a look. This is going to be one of those underrated games that should be worth checking out. And then finally, probably Earthborn Rangers was considered as well. Earthborn Rangers, sitting over there actually, where, you know, you take on, it's mostly a solo game, but you basically take on a ranger and go into all these different bits of nature, and it's a card-based game where you can upgrade your abilities and equipment, and you go through this campaign story, which I'm nowhere near finishing, but it's got a clever system of like your deck being your fatigue as well as all the cool stuff you can do, and just this really nice system of, you know, going through these different like nature park areas and encountering animals and people and interacting with them. Gets a little repetitive at times though with certain traveling aspects, which, you know, check out my review for more details, but yeah, that's what kind of held it back from wanting it to be top 10 material, but I still quite enjoyed it. Also on the list, Archaeologic, you know, Archaeologic, which I think is, it's either right behind me or I can't quite see it, but where did I put Archaeologic? It's somewhere right. Oh, it's right there, dumbass. But, you know, this one basically is a cool deduction game, spatial awareness. You're building like a little Tetris grid, and it, you know, involves you having to figure out which orientation all the pieces are. Quite a cool game as well. And finally, a couple others. Marvel Dagger, I even considered. I mean, Marvel Dagger is a cool, almost like Eldritch Horror meets Marvel in a sense from Fantasy Flight, but it's cool. It's not too complicated. It allows you to play loads of different heroes in a sort of world-based scenario like co-op game. You know, really good fun. And, you know, it would never make my top 10, but Nucleum I gave a 7. I mean, I still think that's a decent game, and given that it's made up as the love child of two games I hate, you know, is pretty good going. But Nucleum takes the good bits of those games, fixes a few of the bad bits. It's not perfect, you know, it's still, you know, not the most interesting theme. It still can be a little bit punishing, and also I don't like the milestone system in it with the stars. I think that's just, it kind of makes the game a little bit too one note, but still I give it props that it actually impressed me as much as it did. But here's a few games that would not come close to making my top 20, but people are going to ask me about. So first of all, Last Light. Last Light hasn't even been seen in the UK unless you back the Kickstarter. The Kickstarter cost $1 million to get it, so it's like, no, I'm not paying that kind of money for it. But everybody has been hyping this game like crazy, even more Canada. Well, with that much hype going around it, you can bet that as soon as it comes out on retail in the UK, I'm going to hunt this game down and I'm going to give it the beans and give my honest thoughts about it, because whenever the hype is generating, you know I've got to come and give my own thoughts on it. So that will get played, it's just, that's going to be a New Year thing. Hopefully I'll be able to play someone's copy in advance and at least give first impressions. Voidfall, yes, loads of people are going to get on my case. Where's Voidfall? Voidfall I gave a half-decent review, providing you play it solo. Or co-op. Co-op's fine, but competitive, the game just kind of falls apart. But the main problem with Voidfall is that it's just too friggin' big. It's huge. It's a crate of a game. It has, you know, I mean, it takes like multiple hours just to, it takes 3 people multiple hours to unbox the thing. It takes eons to set it up. It takes a couple of ice ages to learn the rules, and then you have to spend eternity in purgatory in order to put the game back in the box. It's just too much. There's so many rules, there's so much setup, so much extended time length that it doesn't make for a very practical game. I can play a game of Hegemony in less time than a game of Voidfall, you know, including the setup and takedown. That's saying something, and that's already quite a big one. But, yeah, the game itself is not bad. I still like some aspects of it, like the focus cards and things like that, but the problem is the best aspect of the focus cards is in the co-op and solo mode only. You don't even get them in the competitive mode. In the competitive mode, I just felt it was too much of a multiplayer solitaire game. You know, you're pretty much either hyper-aggressive or you're turtling with economy. You choose one of those two aspects. And we didn't like the way that the ships work. I mean, you've got like ships in the supply, but then you've got to prep them in the bay, and then you've got to do extra to get them out, and it's just like, it's too many steps to a process that could have been streamlined. You know, there's just aspects that get in the way of just making it complex for the sake of being complex. But the game is still fine. But yeah, it just wouldn't really come close to me. And I know some people have put this as their #1 of the year, and I can totally see why. It's not like I think the game is terrible and no one should like it, but it is super niche. You know, you have got to commit to this game. You cannot just buy it as something you have casually on your shelf that you'll play every now and again. No, you have got to devote a lot of your life to this game in order to make it like worth the cost and the hassle. And some people are willing to do that. I'm not.
You know nothing, Jon Snow.
Another one, September, I just didn't have time for it. It's a big game, it's going to take me a while to learn it, and I had all these other games that I had review copies for that I had to get done first, and other things besides. I will visit it in the new year, and I will do a review for it then, but yeah, it's just going to have to wait. Fox Experiment only turned up about a week and a half ago, a couple of weeks tops, and I've played it once. I find it fine. I don't think it's amazing, but I need to play it some more, and I'll visit that one in the new year. But yeah, I just haven't had a chance to play it more often. Raising Robots, is it called Raising Robots? It's something like that. And, you know, literally I've got a review copy of it like this morning, like it only just arrived. So, you know, that one is not one that I was certainly going to get played in time for December, but that's one that I've got to review, so I'll tackle that one in the new year. What else? World Wonders. I only got it the other day. You know, I didn't get a review copy of it at Essen, and it only recently came out in retail. I intend to play it. I'll talk about it. Whether it's a full review or just impressions, we'll see. But, you know, it's on my play pile, so we'll worry about that later. And finally, yeah, Frosthaven. Yes, I know this is going to be like #1 for a lot of people, but let's face it, I only gave Gloomhaven an average score. Simply painting it blue and white is not going to suddenly make me double my rating from 5 to 10 all of a sudden. And, you know, I'm kind of up to here with campaign games at the moment. I cherry pick my campaign games very particularly, and the idea of buying this giant crate for £1 million to play through this massive campaign that I'll never finish is just not appealing to me. You know, if you love Gloomhaven, then you're going to love Frosthaven, because let's face it, tomato, tomato, pick your poison. But, you know, it's just not a game that I'm interested in, and not one I'm ever going to play and review. So, you know, don't expect me to really give any thoughts on that.
You were the chosen one!
So there you go, my comprehensive overview of 2023, including my 10 favourite games. Lots of games that were worth considering this year. Let's say it was a better year than other ones, but I'd be interested to know your thoughts in the comments over the 10 I have picked. Do you like these games? Do you hate them? Do you prefer some of the honourable mentions? Or maybe the ones that I didn't put anywhere near my list, are they your favourite games? Like, I'm pretty sure the Voidfall fans are going to come at me for that one, but, you know, different strokes, different folks. But I'm sure with this year, I think there was a good amount of games that were decent enough that everybody could kind of get what they wanted. Like, no one had to feel left out. Like, oh, there's no gateway game for me, there's no massive Euro for me, there's no big Space 4X game for me. You know, I think there was a little something for everybody, which is definitely a lot better than the last couple of years, that's for sure. But anyway, this is the last video I'll be putting out for 2023. Maybe I'll do a live stream maybe before the new year to say like, oh, like a Q&A, or to say how I rate games, what I'm thinking of doing for the next year, that kind of thing. But that's not a guarantee. You know, the main thing that is guaranteed is that there won't be any more reviews or top 10s or anything like that until we get into January. I need to take a break, calm down, de-stress, spend some time with the family for Christmas, you know, just like everybody else does. And anyway, I've got preparations I'm already doing at the moment, because when I get into January, we're going to start the top 100. Yes, the top 100 has had 14 months since the last one because it was just getting too problematic for me to do it in September and October for Essen timing. It just clashed and it was a nightmare and it burned me out like crazy. So with the votes, we delayed it 14 months until now, January 24, which is when the top 100 is going to start. And I'm expecting quite a paradigm shift when it comes to, you know, what games are included in that, because I've had a long time for these games to settle, whether they get played or not, which ones I like. Maybe some new games have turned up, we shall see. But yeah, I'm kind of excited to see how this top 100 looks, but you have that to look forward to in the new year. So take care, and remember, as always, it's only a game. So everybody have a fantastic Christmas and a happy new year, and I'll see you in 2024. Take care, everyone.